So, good afternoon and welcome to York's Festival of Ideas. And this afternoon's session, behind the scenes at All Creatures Great and Small. I'm Mark Roodhouse, a reader in modern history at the University of York, and I moonlight as the historical consultant to All Creatures Great and Small. One of the most interesting parts of my job sometimes, and I get asked most of the most interesting questions. So, having got that out of the way, let's get on to what you all came here to hear about, which is All Creatures Great and Small. So this afternoon, as I already said, you have in me the historical consultant whose job it is sometimes to say to Donna Metcalfe, who is the script executive, no, you can't do that, because they didn't do it like that in the 1940s or 1950s, or occasionally drop in the odd anecdote from farmers I knew in the Dales where I grew up. But Donna herself knows a lot about this, because before she joined All Creatures, she worked for, I will let Donna explain how long, on Emmerdale, which was part of the reason I think you ended up doing All Creatures.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So our biggest challenge, really, that we were going to talk with you about and share some of the challenges of it, is how do you take what are fictionalized accounts of a real person's life and the people they knew and adapt it for the screen? This isn't your usual case. It isn't a historical accuracy thing, because the thing that we're working with is not that. It's about plausibility. But before we get into that, I think, Donna, it'd be useful for people to understand, what do you do? I mean, what is a script executive?
I was just saying to Mark, actually, nobody knows what a script exec does, or it's also known as a script editor, depending on how experienced you are. So my main job is to work with writers on a TV show. And so in that, it's sort of developing the stories and the scripts. So, there's a sort of... people get a bit confused sometimes thinking that I write. I don't write. I very much am, I call myself a cheerleader for the writers. So I'm like the middleman between the writer and the production. So I have all of the knowledge of what we can and can't achieve. I'm the person that's always sort of hanging out with the producers and the exec producers and the director, and having, costume and set design locations chatting to me. On the other hand, I've got the writer who's working from home and who's trying to create these beautiful stories. And I'm this person in between who's saying, you're doing that lovely thing over there. Over here, they need that. Let's do it this way. So it's very much the person in between. Sometimes the messenger, mostly it is the person that helps come up with the ideas. So we're also I'd say a pair of fresh eyes. If you imagine that a writer goes away and they're trying to develop the story or write the script, they're very much in their own head, doing the very best job that they can do, whereas what I have is the beauty of fresh eyes, and I can look at it like an audience member would look at it, and I would be like, oh, actually I didn't feel any real emotion from that, or I didn't really understand what you were trying to do there, or could it be a bit funnier? So we'll sort of talk things through and work out how to do that, because essentially I'm the eyes of the audience. So it's a really lovely job, to be quite honest with you, because what a privilege that I get to just sit and chat about a lovely, lovely TV show all day.
So we're going to talk a bit about Series 5, which screened last autumn. So Six. Oh, we've been doing this so long.
Don't do 5. I didn't work on that one.
But right now, Donna's head is in Christmas, because she's trying to do Christmas in the Dales and the Christmas scene for later this year. But that's a nice way of thinking about it. So how does the year pan out for you and the team who are writing? So when did you start working on Series 6?
Well, I guess, it's sort of the same on all of the series, that pretty much as soon as we wrap, which is always the end of June, we start on the stories for the next series. So sometimes that's just a few conversations with the exec producers. Now we've got a lead writer again. It's usually sort of led by the lead writer, and we'll start going, what do we want the next series to look like? And so there's a development process that's really from like the summer to Christmas. And then in my head, I sort of think anything after Christmas becomes like scary script time, because we start filming at the end of February. So, where before Christmas feels lovely and, it's just nice development time, then it becomes, this thing has to move and go, and it's going to be filmed, so you've got to get the scripts out.
Having been sort of seen you go through this process quite a few times, the early point, that point between sort of the summer and Christmas, when you're shaping the narrative for the whole series, that always seems a really exciting point. How do you engage with the books and with the family when putting together that? So the last series was 1945. So how did that work out?
In what way? Sorry, like.
So when we're sort of setting up what you're going to draw upon for the whole. Do
you mean like
series?
How would you come at it?
Yeah.
What we tend to do is we'll sort of look at what the characters were doing in the series before, and we'll think, what journey did they go on, and what's the next natural step for them to go on this series. Like, the biggest thing about All Creatures Great and Small is that it's completely character-led. So, if you imagine on, I don't know, a soap or on a lot of other shows, like, big things happen, like plot comes into it, and then the characters react around it. We don't do that. Everything is about the very small turns in character, so everything has to be based on what you could really believe that character would go through. And believe me, we treat those characters like they are family, because you have to believe everything that they're doing. So everything comes from like, what's the natural thing that we think each character would do. And what we do, we have something called a writer's room. Sometimes that's on Zoom, sometimes that's like me and the exec producer and the writers will get in a room and we'll just be chatting about story ideas. So we'll say, like, what do we think Siegfried is going to do this year? Like, what did he do last year? Where might he get to? And we'll sort of talk endlessly around that. What we also might do is we might bring some stories from the books. So we would say, oh, do you know what? I really loved that pig story. I wonder if there's a world where we could use that, because actually in that pig story, there was a really nice little character moment for James. So I wonder if that's something that'll feed in. So we cherry pick. We go, we've not done that story yet. That might be really nice, mightn't it? Something we did last year, actually, is that myself and Neil Jones, who's the lead writer this time, we met up with Rosie and Jim, who are the real children of James Herriot, Alf White. So we basically just spent hours with them chatting about their dad, about their life growing up, because now we've got Rosie and Jim in the show. So, I was really keen to sort of say, how did you get on when you were children? I wanted to know all those things, because it would be awful for them to sit and watch the show and go, but we weren't like that, So, but then we absolutely got exactly who they are, and we hope that we've got moments like that in. So, it all feeds in.
And when do I come into this process as the kind of historical police officer? So
then what happens? A lot of the time in the writer's room, we always know, because we move on year by year. So with 1945, talking about, I keep nearly accidentally talking about the next series. Not doing that. I'll get in a lot of trouble. So in 1945, it was a really interesting one, because we'd done a time jump. And we did that for a few reasons. One of them being there was such a lot of the war in the show. And actually in the books, the way it works is, James will remember his time in the RAF, but mostly it's all about his lovely farm stories. But obviously with us, and we're playing the year out, we can't avoid the war. So we had, the build to war, then Series 5 was very much war proper. We wanted just to jump it on a little bit, and also for us dramatically, it's quite interesting to see what a little time jump will do for people. You can find people in a bit of a surprising place, which I think we did achieve. So what we'll do is so we looked at 1945 and we'd be like, okay, end of the war. But what we learned, it was not the end of the war in the way that we thought. We thought we would very nicely come in, episode 1, VE Day, everyone can go back to normal. And then every time I talked to Mark, it just became more and more clear that the war does not end for a very long time. And that, Tristan, we had a huge story with him. And, even just things like he wouldn't be demobbed. We, as from our sort of editorial heads, we were like, oh, great, he can go back to being a vet. And then Mark would be like, well, he's still very much part of the army. He'll be in his uniform.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, I mean, we thought we'd talk a little bit more about Tris, because Tris seems to, from what we know, is one of the most popular characters in the show. And when he was absent in earlier series, there was a lot of people were a little bit sad, and so bringing him back was quite important, and his journey in the last series was really central to it, wasn't it? So what we're going to share with you now is a sort of a short little package put together by PBS, which is one of the big TV stations in the US, because while All Creatures is big here in the UK, it's absolutely massive in the States. I've had to do podcasts talking about curd tarts, Yorkshire parking. You wouldn't believe the silly things I've had to talk about. But so this is quite nice. This is how they were trying to get across the story that Donna and her colleagues spent so much time putting together.
Tristan has got this incredibly prestigious medal, which he's not telling anyone about, which could not be further from the type of character that we know Tristan to be from previous series.
Has Tris ever talked to you about what he did in the war?
The military cross? Why wouldn't he tell us?
No, I mean, boast is maybe the wrong word, but also maybe it's the right word for Tristan about these accomplishments and about these things. And so for him to be keeping this a complete secret from everyone is very, very out of character for him.
Master strategist, fearless combatant, expert marksman.
Don't make light of it, that's a real achievement. I think this has been a really slow burn, which incidentally Cal has played beautifully.
We owe you all so much. You're all so brave.
Thank you.
Beyond brilliant that he comes home, but obviously he has been upset by the war. He does have some things he needs to work out.
What happened to your letters? Your dispatches from the front were one of my few sources of entertainment.
I ran out of anything I wanted to say.
It turns out that it's not all hunky-dory, and it wasn't all just jokes, and there's a lot going on under the surface. Should I talk to him?
Neither Robert nor Edward wanted to talk when they got back. Perhaps it is better to let him come to you in his own time. He doesn't really immediately want to open up with Mrs. Hall, and she can sense that. She wants to try and speak to him, but also encourage that close relationship with his brother.
I returned from war once. I'm here if you're ever inclined to talk.
Thanks. It all comes to a head. It gets brought out of him by a particularly sort of distressing visit to a farm. It all comes spilling out to Siegfried, who he maybe didn't think Siegfried was going to be the person who he was going to tell. It made a lot of sense for it to be Siegfried, because Siegfried has gone through the exact same thing in World War I.
Mr. Farnan can connect even more directly with what he's been through. There's someone here you can talk to. Your brother.
This beautiful scene in a church after they track him down, and they have a very incredibly well-written scene, which is the type of scene as an actor that you dream of. You just sort of need to say the words. You don't really need to try and act at all, because just saying the words is more than enough when it's that beautifully written.
I think the moment where I do finally get him to talk about why he's a war hero and why he would rather not be is an extraordinarily important moment in our relationship.
So that scene, we have Donna and her team who are responsible for it, and it is one of the kind of most interesting aspects of the series. So when I started working on the series a long time ago, one of the key aims of it was to tell slightly new stories about the 1940s and bring out things that perhaps you wouldn't find in a war film, or you wouldn't find in something like Dad's Army, aspects of life in wartime that are underappreciated. And this particular story is about that. It's about that trauma. And so how did you try to understand that with Tris? Because he's such a bubbly, warm, comic character. How did you really this is character driven, so how did you manage that, Donna?
Yeah, it was really difficult, because we knew that we wanted to tell a truthful story of someone that had gone to war and had a difficult time, especially because in Series 5, for various reasons, actually because he was in the Royal Veterinary Corps and he wasn't on the front line, when he came back from war in Series 5, he had a lot of fun stories. And so when then he'd gone back to war and we played the time jump, we were like, we can't really have one of our characters just come back and say it was all fine. But the challenge with Tristan was, like, he is our big comedy character. So we wanted to add depth, but we didn't want to ruin him in truth, we didn't want. So it was something that we considered really carefully. We got advice, obviously, like, historically about what could have happened, but I think we'll let you talk about that, because it was a really tricky one. How do you get someone who wasn't on the front line to have had a really difficult experience? But we did get advice from PTSD specialists who really helped us with sort of talking through, this is a show with animals, so how might something with an animal trigger a PTSD episode? And how can that feel like not mawkish, like how can it feel very, very truthful? So yeah, it was just basically, we asked a lot of people and we just tried to make sure it was as truthful as possible.
And how did they end up in church sitting side by side?
Good question. I think partly that came from, it's somewhere that Tristan wouldn't normally be found. So the point of it was that he'd gone missing and you wouldn't expect him to be there, but he was somewhere that he needed to gather his thoughts. So I think we all felt that we could believe that he'd be there, and it was surprising for him.
No, because I remember when you raised this as a potential story arc for him back in, gosh, I forget the year now. This is the thing about we're working on the new series, whereas this is going back in time a bit. But I remember you raising this, and I was being a real party pooper, wasn't I? And I was saying, well, Brian Sinclair, who's the inspiration for Tris here, he was in India artificially inseminating water buffalo in 1944-45, and the closest he got was someone fired pot shots over into the camp, and that was it. And you're like, no, well, actually, we want this to happen. And I think this is the sort of sense which you don't necessarily get when you watch the series, and we don't want you to know this because we want it to feel plausible and authentic. Was that Donna had me going through war diaries of units in North Africa to look for potential moments when a vet might have been around who got involved in some kind of combat experience. And we had huge back and forths about this, didn't we? What was the medal going to be?
Oh my God, the medal. The medal it's interesting because I suppose dramatically for us, we had always said we wanted to see a medal in episode 1 that showed the audience that Tristan was hiding something, that there is more to it, but to everybody else, they would just think it's just Tristan. But we would be ahead of the story. We always wanted to do that, and we knew that it would come out on VJ Day, so in episode 6, and that's the only time you'd get the truth. So I remember saying to Mark, he needs to have got a medal, and Mark would be like, And I feel like at one point you kind of had like a sort of, just like a nice medal. We're like, it needs to be one that is a big deal. But then we're like, it can't be too much of a big deal. So it was really hard trying to work it out. And I remember Costume saying to us, like, we need this medal for episode 1. What is it? And what did he get it for? And we were like, we don't know yet. We're not sure. We will find out. And poor Mark was like, because we were like, Mark, he could have been anywhere. Like, you just tell us how he could have got a really nice medal. So it was really tricky, because then the other thing was the details that Mark helps us with is things like, when you win a medal, apparently you have to put it on your uniform. And so I would be saying to Mark, what if he doesn't put it on his uniform, though? Would he be in trouble? What would really happen? Because he's not going to.
This is one of the nice things about the job. So as an academic, I ask very different questions to the ones Donna asks me, and they make me approach stuff really differently. So I remember on a previous series, getting Mrs. Hall divorced.
Oh, yeah, that was one of mine as well.
You would think there would be a lot of sources about that a historian could go to. You would be wrong.
I feel bad now, Mark.
It's the kind of thing that society doesn't record very well, strangely. There's not like good studies, there's no books to read. And it was the same with the kind of sort of the medal story as well. It was sort of, okay, what kind of medal? And I think we went. You decided it had to be the military cross, didn't it? In the end,
it ended up being that. But I think at one point we discounted it. But then we went around the houses and then decided it was okay, as long as we'd had the story, which was that he did come under fire. Yeah. Which is how Mark helped us to get that as a plausible story for Tristan. Yeah,
and I think that's that's a kind of good illustration of what it is as the historical consultant on a show like this, where you have a lot more freedom in telling the story because you're already working with something that's that's fictionalized. It's like Poldark in that sense. It's a set of novels that are set in a context, and so we have that freedom to come up with new stories, and my job is really to say, that's okay, that's plausible, that might have happened. It didn't, but it might have done. Thinking along those lines, I mean, what other challenges did you encounter with that previous series in terms of where you sort of maybe had to do things that didn't fall naturally, like budgetary constraints or people's availability? How does that shape stories?
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, as one thing just to say that's not what I think that we'll talk about is the animals. Like, that is always a really big consideration for us because, stories in the books are books. If we're going to put it on screen, we have real animals. And if you have to do like a complex operation, that means prosthetics, or, if you want a birth, you have to literally have our vet dressed up as James Herriot with a cameraman, like, out and about, like, in the middle of the night to capture a live birth, to see a newborn animal, and then that just gets sort of popped in our scenes, but that's a lot of work. So, it's really tricky. So we have to really consider that when we're going to do a big story like that it really earns its place. You can't just be like, oh, we saw a little birth and it was just at the start of an episode. It has to be like everything to a story.
Yeah, I'm very much second rate compared to the vet consultant who is like top of the tree.
Well, he dresses up as James Herriot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was lucky enough to go on the set once, and it was when they were mucking around with the mascot.
With the bird.
Was that series 4?
Series 4 Christmas, yeah.
And that was incredible to watch how the vet was organising everybody and almost running the scene.
Yeah, fun fact about Andy Barrett, who's our vet. He actually worked with Alf White and Jim White and Donald Sinclair. And he tells a really funny story about when Donald and Alf interviewed him to get the job, and so he's very much in the world of protecting the White family, and I just spend a lot of my time asking him questions.
He's got good stories as well.
He's got really good stories.
Really good stories.
Probably a good one from Series 6 is, as I'm sure like lots of people that follow the show know, Rachel Shenton had a baby. And so for us, it gave us a real challenge because we knew that we only had her, I think, up until maybe the April of last year. And now it's really difficult in this show to say you just can't have Helen, because we can't say that she just wandered off for a little while, because she's supposed to be in the heart of the show. So we had to really think about what to do. And luckily, it sort of all fed into the Siegfried story, and we could say that Helen and James had chosen to live at the farm because there was more room and there was more help because Mrs. Hall wasn't there. So it made sense for her to be there, which for us meant we won't see her as much in the house, so that's okay. And then what we did is we came up with this story because we were like, what will we do? How can we say Helen's gone somewhere? And we thought, well, do you know what, maybe Jenny's the key, because in Series 5, Jenny was just starting to have ideas about wanting to leave Yorkshire. So we were like, let's send Jenny somewhere, and then Helen can go and help her. So then we said to Mark, how would Jenny become a nurse, and would she maybe be able to move to London? And what would the process be? And, oh, by the way, I think we sort of said she left school when she was about 14. Can we get away with that? Like, can we do that? And Mark was like, okay.
I'll go and have a look at it. Yeah. This is, again, where it's interesting. So my specialism is actually organised crime. In the 1940s and 1950s. So I know the society, but so I was like, oh, nursing, this is going to be quite a challenge. So let's go. So I went off and was finding out nursing and finding out how much you got paid and what the uniform was and where you might live and where the training places were and how far that was from Yorkshire, what the train timetables might be, because the timeline is important here as well, isn't it? That's one thing that the show... I mean, you filmed from February through to June. Yeah. Yeah. And roughly the show is sort of spring, summer break, then there's a Christmas episode. We normally go sort of March, April to about September, but Series 6 was a bit different because we started VE Day, episode 1, and we knew we wanted to have episode 6 VJ Day, so we were like May... August. So yeah, it was a little bit more of a compressed timeline, but actually that really helped us with the Helen story, because it meant that if anybody had said to us, but how long was she really away? You know, is that right that she was away? It was about 3 weeks. We thought we could get away with that. She's settling her sister into London. And that's okay. Yeah. No, that was a challenging storyline in some ways.
Because I was like, when would Jenny start? Like, is that okay? Like, we hope it's okay.
And I was referring to earlier. I mean, the challenges of practically filming at the moment within the Dales. So, how do you do Christmas in June? How does that work out? I mean,
it's funny.
I was running luckily in Grassington yesterday, and it doesn't look very Christmassy at the moment. No.
It's funny, when I started on the show, I very naively was like, oh, so do you film Christmas first? They were like, no. So the truth of it is that we try and find stories that you can play inside. We try and find stories that they're in just places that aren't very green, essentially. It sounds really crazy, but you have to avoid the beautiful, lush dales. Like, you have to go for, what's the most remote farm you could choose? Because, I remember we had a real problem with Series 4, was James returning from the RAF base. And it was a story of him travelling, but it was like he can't travel because everywhere you look, it's green. So it was really difficult trying to work that out. So yeah, the truth of it is, it's looking for areas that you can be outside where there's not leaves on trees. And it's just, the truth is, a lot of actors in big woolly coats being very warm and pretending that they're not. And that, probably pretending they're absolutely freezing.
Earning their pay. But so where are the key locations within the Dales at the moment? So, because again, if you go to Grassington today, you'll find that the Drovers Arms is open for business because the signboard is up on the pub. So where else is the sort of a lot of the filming taking place?
Yeah, so Grassington is sort of the main area. That's where you can see Skeldale House. That's where you can see the Drovers exterior and that lovely main square. In truth, I think it's only maybe 2 days per filming block that we're actually in Grassington. We use Arncliffe, which is really beautiful, and that's sort of the back of Skeldale House. So whenever you see like the village green or where the VJ Day party was, that's all supposed to be like the back of Skeldale, but that's Arncliffe. Don't know, you know the area more than me.
Yeah, I suppose I do. Yeah. but the production base is in...
We're in Summerbridge.
Summerbridge.
Yeah, so all of the interior locations, it's amazing, like the Skeldale House set, it's absolutely massive, It feels, I think sometimes some TV sets, you can just tell it's a set, but whereas Skeldale House is massive, and it's, you can really sort of walk through it all, like it's not like a cheat where some film sets are. It's supposed to look like it flows through, but it doesn't. Skeldale House is massive and you can just walk through the whole thing. Yeah. The interior of the Drovers pub is there, and the interior of Helen and Richard's farmhouse is there as well.
And I suppose the other big place is Broughton Hall, isn't it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Who are doing very well on All Creatures, as is Grassington, from what I understand. The owners of the pub in Grassington are really keen that the Drovers Arms sign stays up as long as possible.
And I was just saying, to be fair to them, I think they I think they have to for the whole of the filming duration, but I'm sure it helps them a lot.
So when will you next be in Grassington?
Do you know, I actually don't know. I genuinely don't know. In a few weeks' time, probably, I don't know.
Yeah, that is one of the interesting things. One of my proudest achievements, I think, with the show was getting you all to the Yorkshire Air Museum.
And I went there as well at one point. After, it was great. Yeah.
So, thinking about how the story has been sort of developing and how the individual sort of characters. To what extent did the cast get involved with defining their characters, and how does that shape how you and the team, when writing, think about things?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The cast, I think they speak to our exec producers about, they'll want to know where their character's heading. Certainly from a script perspective, whenever the scripts come out, they will ask me questions, or they'll ask why they're doing certain things. They take real care over their characters. They've all sort of got their ways, and they have to get everything completely in their head, to inhabit their characters. So they want to know exactly what's going on. I wouldn't say they have a say in their future story, but they will let us know if they're particularly unhappy about anything and question it. And we have changed bits and pieces before, because the truth is they live those characters, and actually they're probably right if they go, do you know what, I'm not sure I would say that or I would do that. We'll listen, And
Sam West is very good at one particular thing.
Yes, Sam West is, he sends us anachronisms. And you know what, they are actually really helpful, because, with the best will in the world, when we're looking at scripts, of course, our priorities are, how the stories and the character journeys are working, and getting the research, from you, from our vet. There's a million different things we're juggling. So actually sometimes there might be a bit of an Americanism or something, a phrase that only came out in the 1960s that I did not notice. And Sam will tell me, and we'll change it. So it's very useful to have his beady eye on everything.
Yeah, I suppose that sense of a larger team, it's the thing when you watch a show, you don't necessarily realise how many different people are working on it simultaneously and all the different moving parts. One of the things I've turned into is a historical weatherman.
Oh,
and so one of the many questions I've got asked is, what was the weather like in 1945, Mark, in this particular month? And how would that play out with grass and grass yields and haymaking? And we've been playing around with that quite a lot, haven't we? By the way, the answer is go to the Met Office website. They have amazing historical sort of month by month, week by week, day by day summaries. And for the Second World War, brilliant, because you can't find any of it in the newspapers because it was a state secret. Didn't want to know, the Germans didn't. No one wanted the Germans to know what the weather was, so you have to go to the Met.
That's crazy.
Are we sort of? I'm conscious we're going to sort of open up to questions in a minute, but can we say anything about what's happening in the next series?
Why would you say that?
maybe to ask the question to control.
Do you know what? No, the thing I was thinking about this is, because we're in 1946, we were following quite a lot from. We used one of the books, The Lord God Made Them All, as one of our big inspirations for the series because it is really 1946 heavy, and it is a time that there was a lot of modernisation and mechanisation, and James in the book finds that really challenging. And so actually we got a lot from that. It felt like a real point where, because we're post-war, things are changing very, very quickly, and characters will feel a certain way about that. So I think that's fair enough to share
I suppose, and that's again points to one of the things that I know everyone's been trying to do with this series, which is tell us stories we kind of know, but tell them a little bit differently. And mechanisation of agriculture and modernisation of agriculture after the Second World War was such a huge thing. Moving over from haymaking to silage, bringing tractors onto farms, the disappearance of horses. There's so many interesting... Creation of the national park, that's going to happen, I suppose. Are we going to deal with that? Maybe, who knows?
Maybe.
We've both signed NDAs. We can't... I'll be in serious trouble.
Do you know what? It's a funny thing, though, because we often, we start out and we have these really big ideas, and something on All Creatures that we sort of call within our team is the story shrinking machine, because it's so based on the tiny things that a character does, or the very small thing that happens to a character that actually is massive emotionally. So we sometimes start with I feel like I might be butchering this, but in series 5 they were going to have a bomb go off or something, and then it ended up being they just found a bit of something. Things start massive sometimes, and then they end up really small. So sometimes we do have these very big ideas that just become, it's a little character moment, but it's really lovely.
Yeah, great. Well, Donna, that's been a really interesting insight into All Creatures. And I think at this point, it would be interesting to throw this open to you guys to ask Donna questions, ask myself questions. The stewards will move around the room. They've got microphones, which they'll pass to you. There's two people, hands up, got at the back there first, straight away. So... I need my sunglasses to look through the lights. Great.
Thank you very much. As someone who's ex-military and a military historian and a very proud great nephew of a wartime MC winner, it's clear from the very brief clip that you showed there about the award of the Military Cross to Tristan that you've handled that with great sensitivity, so a personal thank you from me for that. It is something that strikes a chord. I wonder whether I could ask you about the episode, which is my personal favourite in the series so far, where Siegfried is returned to the Western Front with the Army Veterinary Corps in, I think it was 1917. I noticed that he also is wearing the ribbon of the MC on his uniform at the time. And I just wondered, first of all, whether or not there are any plans to tell us what he got his MC for, and also whether that episode presented any particular challenges for you in dealing with the very poignant issue of the treatment of horses towards the end of the First World War. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that first of all, it's great to hear that we did a good job on that, because it was something we were very conscious of. But Donna, what can you say without giving too much away about the future of that?
Oh, well, you're talking about, if I'm really honest, you're talking about an episode that I didn't work on, so I don't know the ins and outs on it, because that was from series 2 or 3, the Siegfried one. It's an episode, though, that we looked at really carefully when we were working on Tristan's story, because it is just probably, one of the very best episodes. It's absolutely beautiful. And what we were really keen to do through the series is show that, Siegfried has his own trauma from war. So he is the very best person to talk to Tristan, but because of the relationship they have, they're just not, and they're men in the 1940s, they're just not used to talking about it. As for the ribbon, if I'm really honest, I didn't know that he had that, in that series.
I could speak to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a bit surprised by that, to be honest.
That was one of the cases where when there was no MC given to anyone in the Royal Veterinary Corps during the Second World War, but there are, I think, 2 cases during the First World War which were very much about animals near the front line, because of course it wasn't as mechanised as the second, and that is there, and it is part of that dynamic. So thank you for asking the question. I'm not sure we've entirely answered your...
No, sorry, just to say it's absolutely beautiful, and that's definitely an episode that we talk about all the time because of how important that is to Siegfried and who he is.
There was another question at the back, and then this gentleman here at the front. So,
can you hear me okay down there?
We can, that's great.
Thank you. Firstly, let me just say to Donna, to yourself and to Mark and to all the crew and actors, you do a wonderful job. You make a fantastic TV series which gives us all a respite from the doom and gloom of reality, and I think you do a fantastic job of it, of conjuring up the spirits of the books. But Donna, I'm going to put you on the spot here, because I think I'm going to ask the most important question you're going to face, probably today or in times to come, and that is, when is Mrs. Hall and Secret going to get together?
We knew this was coming.
I said that was going to come up. Don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. What lovely friends they are. What a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, that's where the NDA, I cite the NDA on that one. Can't plead the fifth, we're not American, but the NDA.
I can't tell you how many hours we spend talking about that story. Hours. But I genuinely, who knows?
There's a gentleman here who's going to ask, could you bring a mic down? Thank you. Just so that everyone can hear you, what you want to ask.
Thanks very much. Just want to ask, really going right back to when the idea to remake All Creatures came about. I grew up watching the old one. You can't beat that kind of thing. Well, actually, you've done a pretty good job in actually moving that on. I think we'll all agree to that. What was it like? And I appreciate maybe before you guys' time, but to take that chance, that risk, thinking, right, something so iconic, we're going to try and remake this again. Big stress for all behind the scenes, massive stress for the actors who are actually front and centre with this. Are they going to succeed or not? I think the fact that I used to work for PBS a long time ago, and that seems that it's anchored now in PBS, so we've got that American market, like the other companies like Doctor Who's and Red Dwarfs, that kind of stuff. That's a real accolade to yourself to see that. But just curious to know that decision making, that risk that was taken, was it a really big risk, or was it thinking, yeah, we're going to stay along with this?
It's tricky because I wasn't there. I came in on series 4. I think just from the bits and pieces that I've heard, I think it did feel like a big risk, but I think that the team knew that they were doing something quite different and special. So they knew that when the show was on the BBC, it was so loved and it was brilliant. But the show that they were bringing, like as the sort of the new adaptation, was very different. You know, like it was much more based on the emotional character journeys rather than sort of. I mean, I don't want to speak about the other one too much because I don't really know. But I hear it's more the sort of the fun, anecdotal animal stories, whereas we go for the sort of really pulling through the character emotional stories. I know that there was big conversations with the White family to make sure that it was right to do it and to do it in the right way, and that they were really involved. And I must say, Melissa Gallant, who's been the exec producer the whole time, is like a personal hero of mine. She is the nicest woman, and she hates it when I say it, but she's the heart and soul of the show. She's the reason it is what it is. And it was her relationship, I think, with the White family, that they trusted her. And that, you know, and everything about that show and the way that Ben Vanston helped to create it as well, that made it something quite different and special. And I think pretty much as soon as it started, it just did so well. But I think, you know, I personally think Melissa Gallant is the person that has made it as special as it is.
I came in, I became the formal historical consultant a little bit later, but I was involved in series 2 already, doing queries with Alice Northey, who was Donna's sort of predecessor. And there was a very strong sense at the beginning that they were looking over their shoulder to a sense at the BBC show, but they wanted to do it differently. They wanted, as Donna was suggesting, to give this wider sense of society and social change and place the stories more in a realistic environment. So you got sort of you would see in widescreen sort of British society at particular points and how it was evolving at this really critical sort of time. The other sense I got from those who were there at the very beginning of it was Channel 5 just took a risk on it. And as part of a Channel 5 strategy, which was a sense of emulating or bringing back things the BBC had done but wasn't doing anymore, but they knew there would be a popular audience for. And this was a classic example of it. They've tried another one, and this is where I'm going to, you know, I can, as the University of York historian, be a bit different about this, but they've tried to repeat that success with another show called The Hardacres, equally based on historical novels, which hasn't quite worked in the same, to the same degree, partly because there isn't that existing fan base. And I think it's the all creatures nature of the story captured a lot of people, but equally trying to do it a bit differently. So, thank you. A really interesting question. There's another question here. If you could bring this gentleman here and there.
You can definitely see the love that goes into it, both behind the scenes and the actors on screen. Absolutely wonderful ensemble cast, but my question, which may be a spoiler, you may not be able to answer, but I would like to know, will they get a turkey dinner on Christmas Day?
Whoa. God. Well, I'm going to. While Donna thinks, I will answer. So, you know, as I said, my expertise is organised crime, and I love it when I get a black market storyline into the show, because it's where my direct research goes. There were turkey rustlers going around Norfolk in this period to get turkeys to the London market. So, getting hold of a turkey in the Dales, pretty unlikely. Maybe some other poultry, maybe. Who knows? But there's...
I really like the murky story from last time. I thought that was funny.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's been interesting about the show is that things change quite slowly in this period. So it's 1945, and you're after the end of the war, perhaps, but still, it's not suddenly the end of austerity. We've got years of that to go. and that has
yeah,
potentially...
do you know, I was going to say, I don't know if this is a spoiler or whatever, but like, because rationing is such a big deal, and, you know, people didn't really realise it would sort of keep going on. We do have rationing stories in Series 7, but we then, you know, it's really difficult because then you don't want people to be constantly talking about what they haven't got. So there's a story place for it that we find, and it's very good, isn't it?
It's good, it's good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
But actually, Christmas is its own thing this time. So in Series 6, it was a really good little story for Mrs. Hall that she was desperate to get a turkey and she'd do a darts, and then they end up with a murky and a pet turkey, as we always do. But this time, it's not something we touch on. Sorry. Let's say they do. Let's say they do. And we just don't see it.
Question here. If you could pass there's a microphone coming across to you just now.
Location scout in the Yorkshire Dales. Is this the toughest gig in the world or the easiest?
The nicest. Honestly, I was talking to our locations manager, and we've had lots of different people do it, and he was just like, well, this is the nicest job. Like, he's normally in Manchester, sort of scoping out grim buildings or whatever, and he's been living his best life driving around the Dales this time. So I think they have a brilliant time. I think that sometimes it must be interesting because now we're on Series 7. You know, I was saying the other day to one of our execs, like, surely we've gone round all of the farms. Like, surely there isn't anyone that hasn't been asked if they want to be on it. But yeah, I think they have a delightful time driving around.
Great. There's one more question here and a question for here, and then I think we'll wrap up for the day. This gentleman here.
There's a lot of emotion in the show and a lot of serious stuff, but there's also some comedy. Do you ever get any good outtakes, and do you get the actors ad-libbing?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a few things there. I was going to say, like, one thing that we talk about all the time when we're looking at the scripts is, like, we want it to be truthful, painful, funny. And we also look at things that it's not too saccharine, you know, so we will make sure that if there's been either a very, like, emotional thing or a very sad thing, that there's some kind of uptick, you know, there's something that can make you go, oh, I feel okay again, you know, like, so we do balance that very carefully. I'm sure there's loads of outtakes, and, you know, and there's definitely some ad-libbing, because I'll watch a cut of something and be like, well, no, you know, because normally people will call up and they'd say, oh, so-and-so would like to say this instead, and I'll be like, if it means the same thing, and if they're that bothered, okay, fine. Or sometimes I just say no. But then, you know, I'll watch something, I'll be like, well, there's a lot of paraphrasing there. So, no, it's not really. Or who does it a lot? Tony Pitts, that plays Richard Alderson. Yes. Sometimes at the end of a scene, you'll see shunters on, none of that is scripted. That's just him adding his own bits.
Bring the mic there.
I'm sort of amazed no one's asked about Tricky Woo. And are you succession planning? I don't know what the lifespan. But Donna, thank you so much. But I just had to ask, I wanted somebody to ask about Tricky Woo.
Tricky. Yeah, no, we do talk about it because, like, how old is Tricky? We sometimes joke that really Mrs. Pumphrey must have had many, many Trickies. There's like many Tricky graves in the garden. You'll just have to watch Series 7. Obviously, we saw in Series 6, he tried his hardest, didn't he? Bless him, but just have to watch.
Yeah, so Series 7 is still being filmed at the moment. If you're lucky enough and passing through Grassington in June, who knows, you might be there when the Drovers is being used. I'm trying to persuade Donna to let me appear as an extra in the pub, but I'm not sure that's going to happen this series. Putting under pressure now. So I think really, thank you for your questions. They were absolutely, fascinating, and most importantly, thank you to Donna and the rest of the rest of the writing team who put it on our screens. So thank you very much.